Welcome back to Real Estate IQ. We're raising your IQ to become a real estate expert. Today, I am lucky enough to have my main man, Reid from RS Home Inspection. And what I like to preface you with, Reid, is you inspected my first house on McClellan Street. I'm aging you, I guess, but I'm not. I'm showing experience. Before I was even in the biz. So, and that was 2005. That was probably September of 2005 or so. So.
Oh my goodness, it's been a while.
That's 20
Look
years.
at us.
And we're kind of like, I would say, like Northeast buddies, so to speak. You know, I'm a Northeast Philly guy. You're a. Can I say Andalusia? Is that what I say?
Andalusia.
Boom.
LA represent. Yep.
I like it. I like the 30-second version of your past experience.
Sounds good. Hello everyone. My name is Reid Stever. I am the owner of RS Home Inspection, celebrating 1 year in business by myself. I have done home inspections for over 20 years. I worked with a company called US Inspect for the first 10 years when I met Brian. And then I worked with a company called Value Guard for 10 years. And now I have my own company operating in Philadelphia and all the surrounding suburbs, doing home inspections, wood destroying insect, termite inspections, and radon inspections. So it's a job I enjoy very much. I have a lot of fun doing it. And I live in Glenside in Montgomery County with my wife, Kristen, and my son, James, who's about to turn 10.
Boom.
And and our dog, Heidi. So that's my career, 20 years plus of home inspections, and still love it very much.
And
thanks for having me, bud.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And in my opinion, the best in the biz.
So I appreciate that very much. That's high praise.
No, it's true. And so first of all, like when people get when a buyer goes under contract and they have to we start to have the inspection conversation, it's not good practice for a realtor to give like just one option for a service provider, like one mortgage person, one inspector. So sometimes you got to give me, but I'm like, I often say like, Reid's my guy. He's the best in the business. And so a couple things. I usually say, what people will say to me is, my colleague just bought a house, and they love their home inspector. And I want to be like really sarcastic, but what I usually say to them is, your colleague may have had one home inspection in their life. I've been through whatever 1,000 of them or whatever it is. So home inspections are not, and that usually puts things into perspective, and people are like, wow. But I think one of the concerns sometimes people have is, and this goes back to like options and stuff too, is they say, well, is Brian going to refer an inspector that's super diligent? Because if he does, there's a possibility that inspector, if they're too diligent, is going to kill the deal. And Brian wouldn't. And who wants to kill the deal? The realtor wants to just keep things moving along. And I usually tell people like that's just not the case. Like it just doesn't work like that. I just know that all inspections are not created. All inspectors are not created equally. So did that make sense? I feel like it made sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What my 2 cents on that would be, I always think if I was a realtor, and I certainly refer contractors more so now that I'm kind of doing my own thing, is that there's always sort of like there's kind of I don't know if it's an unwritten rule or a suggestion that there be no referrals because there'd be a conflict of interest. So I always give 2 names, 3 names for most things that I'm saying, say a roofer or an electrician, but try to have good people, right? So after doing this for 20 years, your only incentive is to have your client be thrilled. And so I know you very well, and I'm fortunate after 20 years, I think what's happened is you work with people whose main goal is to make sure their clients are happy. There is no, kind of worry that there's a deal that's, not going to go through, or that someone's going to be kind of worried about whether or not this goes through. The idea is to make sure we have all the knowledge from a home inspection perspective, and you have so many steps in a real estate process, but specifically with home inspections is get all the knowledge about the home in a way that's digestible and actionable, so you can move forward with one of the biggest purchases of your life, if not the biggest purchase of your life. So where you're coming from, and most of the folks that I work with, this is a referral business, so the vast majority of my business is referrals from real estate agents, friends, family, of people who have bought homes using me as the home inspector. So I think what you get from me is, I like to be the trusted house detective, and I'm not going to hold back at all on any problems in the home, but I want to be able to deliver this in a way that is, homes are not perfect. So, there are things that are minor that can be wrong, and there's things that are major. So to have, real estate professionals like yourself that are able to just say, hey, this is information. Like, I know this person is going to be very, very thorough, also going to be able to communicate this in a way that we can use moving forward, whether we're negotiating with the seller, or just for their own knowledge with the home. So I guess, long story short, it's about being there for the client. So, and I appreciate that very much, is my attention to detail and my ability to be there for the client, in 3 hours, usually 3 hours, with a report that's delivered in a fairly timely fashion that you can respond in your time frame. So I appreciate that very much, but that's it. Is there are a lot of inspectors out there in the world, and I appreciate the vote of confidence. I mean, it's certainly borne out from a few decades of us working together to make sure people are happy.
And it's I'm going to jump around a little bit here, but one of the things.
Please do.
One of the things I like about you, and even Joe and stuff, is it's your job is and people probably might not notice this, but it's science, right? Because you need to know what you're doing, right? But
yep.
There's also the art in terms of the communication, and how you present information to people, right? Simply a problem that is really not that big of a deal, right? That could be common. The way it's conveyed to the buyer can make it sound like exactly what it is, not a big deal, or can make it sound like it's very problematic. So you do a good job of, and I don't want to sound like, if I say that, of not being an alarmist. You do a good job of setting the stage of what's really important, what's not important, what's normal, what's not normal, and I think that's really important in a home inspection, because it's you get that's why I like if a transaction dies, right, and I'm going to get to that part in a second, and a property goes back on the market and it dies because of a home inspection, and the next buyer wants to see the home inspection. It's I prefer to have the seller just update the seller's disclosure, because if you drop just an inspection report in front of a first-time buyer and they go through that, their head's going to explode. There's just too much information in there. They're not present to hear the explanation behind the words. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to what we do, and that's why it's super encouraged that people attend the inspection, because a home inspection report is going to read fairly boilerplate. It's going to say this issue is wrong, have a contractor fix this issue, but that might not be something you have to do for 5 years. So when or it may be something, a lot of times half my list I will describe as just things that I'm just being detailed to make sure everything that's wrong in the property. It's weighted by scale of importance. We use 3 color scales. It would be blue for a low maintenance type item. Orange would be the bulk of the report, if you have an outlet that needs to be rewired, or a leaky sink trap, even if you needed a new water heater. And then red would be something significant, so if you needed a new roof or something like that. So there is nuance to this, so it's good to communicate, to talk these things through for people to plan, obviously the purchase, but also moving forward with the home. What are we going to have to plan for and that sort of thing. So to your point, home inspection reports can read very, very heavy. You need to word these things in a way that is digestible. Most people don't know anything about a house, and that's how I like to start a home inspection is you have no expectation of knowledge. I want to, my favorite buyer is a first-time home buyer. This
Sure.
is someone that I can educate about all the things that are kind of intimidating in a house and say, this is what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Here's where you would shut off your water in case of emergency. Here's where you would change a filter, and here's something you want to do annually. Here's something you want to do every few years. And so, yeah, it's an art and it's a science. I also like to cater my inspections to the buyer. Some people might be an engineer. Someone might have, like a family member there that has
Engineers.
and so somebody might have like a family member who's in the trades, so like what expertise and knowledge do you have, what resources do you have, and let's make a plan for you as you're buying this house. It doesn't necessarily have to be that everything's wrong or everything's right, but it's usually a lot of in-betweens, and so let's celebrate what's right. Yeah, so they're there for a reason. They like this home a lot. They've put an offer in. It's been accepted. So let's respect all the good things about the house as well. It's very easy to just go through and trash a house. There's not a lot of value for a client when you're just criticizing every part of a home and overly so. It's like in my mind, there's a fix for everything. Some fixes are more expensive and require a bit more. Sometimes even evaluation by a professional, but these things are fixable. They're usually knowable, and you need to have this knowledge as you're moving forward with a purchase. So, that's the idea. It's an art and a science, and then to have real estate professionals that are not overly concerned about if there's a big issue in the home, we're going to deal with this. If there's a multitude of big issues, your buyer best. Is this too much? And you're very good about it's just information, and your buyers very well, and it's like, okay, at some point this may be too much for you, and we should see what the seller's willing to do, and if there's no significant concessions, maybe there are other fish in the sea, and that's not the end of the world. You don't want this to be a high pressure zone where you're pushing someone through a process that feels like they could be uncomfortable or out of their depth with a lot of issues in a home. So to have sort of a pressure-free zone is how I'll describe it. Is I want to contact the buyers afterwards if they have questions. We're going to go over these things for 3 hours. You're going to get a report. Take a break and. A home inspection day can sometimes be heavy with a lot of information. So, take a day or two, come back and read the report. Call me if you have questions. I'll go through every line item. A lot of nights I spend with buyers just kind of talking through these things. So,
you are
just
great.
having
You are great with that, with follow-up. Listen, I have follow-up questions sometimes, and we have to talk through some things.
I love it. And full contact is great. It's just being available. These things are timely as well. It's like, someone needs an answer. You'd better be available. You better be kind of responding to these things no matter what it is in a timely fashion. So, yeah, alarmist is a word that gets dropped with home inspectors a lot. So, my goal is never to, all good. My goal is never to, full-throated sell a home to someone, and it's never to scare anybody away from the house. There's so many parts of a house that I'm not party to, like price of a home, value of a home. My wife always says, stay in your lane. So there's things that I know a lot about, which is, the condition of the home and things to expect. And there's things that I'm no party to. So I want your buyers to have all the information possible. So that's the idea. Yeah.
I think it's and correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't want to call out my side of the business, but I would venture to say that given for how long I've been doing this, chances are when you come in to inspect a home that I represent a buyer for, that deal's not going to die. And I say that because I'll say transaction. I don't like the word deal. That transaction is not going to die because I feel like I tell a lot of people, and this isn't to discredit what you do. It's just I know a fair amount of stuff about homes, and I say I can get I can get buyers through 75% of a good portion of this home inspection, short of some of the equipment you use and getting on the roof
Absolutely.
and stuff like that. But I would venture to say, like, maybe if you had a buyer who's represented by like a younger, less experienced agent, that may be where you probably have maybe a little bit more of a difficult home inspection at times. Because I say that because when I go into a house, like, regardless of whether it's a good fit in terms of price or location, like, if it's a disaster, it's a disaster, and I'm going to
That's
identify.
right.
I'm going to identify that. Is there like a parallel between like an agent that's kind of been around for a little while and the type of houses they sell or whatever versus someone maybe who's a little bit younger and you walk in and you're like, oh man, they didn't pick up any of this crap, or am I just reading into that too much?
No, 100%. Yeah, and it can be a seasoned agent that it's a personality thing as well, and and how people run their business and that sort of thing.
That's true.
But it is I think you make a good point is that, with people that have been in the business a long time and really have their client's best interest at heart, by the time we get to the home inspection, you've sort of filtered out all the things that aren't going to be a fit, and you've identified if the heater is older and really bad shape, the electric cable outside, you're going to spot any cracks and, like these sorts of things. And then as we dive deeper, if we find a few items that are surprises, which is not uncommon, then how much does this cost? Am I able to give you an approximate cost estimate, which we can most times, or do we need a contractor to come in during the time period and get an estimate? Which I don't like people to have to run around and get estimates, but if you're a seasoned real estate agent, this is not a problem. You say, okay, we're going to get someone over and get an estimate for this. Whereas if you're someone that's newer or maybe doesn't have your client's best interest at heart, you'll say, well, we don't have the time for this, or like an extension on a home inspection is like the end of the world. Like, these are things that are just, for the more seasoned agents, is just part of the process. You know that things are going to happen. You're going to be juggling during this deal or during this transaction no matter what. So it's just a matter of, with this transaction, what do I have to do? And that's how I like to kind of, perceive the situation as a home inspector is, is this information going to be delivered to the client and be actionable after we leave in a way where they can really plan financially, moving forward. So those things in my mind just don't have to be big deals. So if you have someone who's either newer or maybe, again, doesn't have their client's best interest at heart, those things can seem a lot heavier. They can be much bigger deals. I've had agents say, oh, there's knob and tube in this house. Like, this is the end of, the deal, like, where it's, and really all that is, it's expensive. You need to get an estimate, and you need to figure out who's paying for it. Like, that's really what it is.
If I could pan up, I would show you the hole in my ceiling. From it's up there for about 10 years. It's now finally replaced, but I haven't fixed the patches. But that's it.
That's hilarious.
Old house.
I was gonna do this. I was gonna do the same thing. I had my knob and tube replaced multiple years ago, and people think, "Oh, your house must be perfect." If I was filming in my office in the back room, I have holes in the ceiling with knob and tube still hanging out. That's dead. It's on the list.
It's always. My dad was a general contractor. There was always a project going on in the house. So.
Yeah, exactly. We love homes.
Yeah,
it's a process.
It's like anything, right? You spend your day working all day on homes. Last thing you want to do is come home and spend more time on your home. So,
100%.
Let me ask you. So I want to get into like the obvious like questions of like what you see and stuff like that. And we're not. We're at 19 minutes right now, so maybe we'll try to keep this like 30 minutes or whatever, 35 minutes. But real quick, this is something I don't know the exact number, and you might not know it off the top of your head, but it kind of like makes my head explode. How many home inspections do you have to shadow somebody or whatever on before you can get your home inspected? Isn't it like some ridiculous amount of home inspections?
You know what? I thought it was much higher, and the interesting thing about home inspections is a lot of people come to this as a second career. So I do look this up from time to time. I'll have people say, "Hey, I'd like to get into this business." So I'll usually be supportive and kind of give them all the, all the requirements and that sort of thing.
All the reasons not to do it.
And I'll offer to be that shadow if people want to do it. Especially as a business owner, is like, I'm happy if someone wants to come along and sort of see what it's all about and have a few inspections under their belt. But I think the number is, I think it's around. I thought it was 250, which is way higher than what it is. I think it's 100 or 150 inspections, something like that. So
Okay.
it's not nothing, but usually you can get that done. I think my training was around 6 months when I started. I was like 25 years old, something like that, and I would shadow for probably 6 to 8 months, and then you have to take some exams and that sort of thing. So that's a tough thing, is a lot of companies don't really offer that as much anymore. They're kind of looking for more like veteran inspectors, just because there was a lot of attrition in the COVID years, or when things sort of with real estate markets, there's boom and bust. So so it's an inspection is like 2-3 hours, and you have to do, let's say, 100 or so, like inspections you have to shadow someone for. And then in Pennsylvania, you have to be a member of a national organization. I'm a member of ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and that's just always the one that I've been a member of. There's also one called INTERNACHI, which is good as well. Yeah, so shadowing is, I had a lot of fun, but you're opening electric panels, holding bags, and you're sort of just like being a sponge. It's the best training you can have. It's just, there's a lot of repeatable things in a home inspection, so you're going to get those things. And, even just ladder management and the tools you need, and, how you're getting up into an attic, and,
Now it's flying a drone, right? Right.
Yeah, we have a drone. I named my drone Amelia, for Amelia Earhart, who I was a big fan of. I wrote a report about her in grade school, so that's been amusing for people. I have a Amelia Earhart sticker on my drone bag, and so people are like, "Well, is that good? Because didn't her plane like disappear?" I'm like, "Yeah, but this is like this is
Nice.
kind of the net. We're keeping her going. We're keeping her alive. These are her other flights, and the drone has been revolutionary for me, is for safety. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm no spring chicken, so like climbing on roofs is dangerous. So being on a roof is always preferable. And you'll hear this from inspectors and contractors as well. Is there's things that you can, especially like a South Philly 2-story row home. Like, I'm climbing on this roof. A lot of roofs have a smaller roof in the back that I can use to get up to main roof. So my preference is always to be on the roof. But for some of the more complicated roof systems you get, like especially in the suburbs, or say like Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy, Germantown, where you have slate roofs or something that's very complicated, no matter how much I move a ladder around, I would have never been seeing kind of behind a chimney. There would have been a lot of limitations. So now the combination of ladders and drones, I can get a full view of every roof, and the cameras have come such a long way. These are like super high definition photos, and like tops of chimneys and things that I was never really able to see. They would be limitations.
Right.
So we're in the future. I have thermal cameras as well that are like fantastic. So like seeing heat in an electric panel, temperature of hot water. We have moisture meters that we use for stains, but a thermal image you can see like very well, whether or not something is active from a roof leak or a plumbing leak. So it's a great time for technology for sure. Report writing as well, like with like the advances with AI now too. Is I use a company called Spectora that's really on the forefront of a lot of this with just the volume of pictures in a report, and also just accessibility for clients, just very clean digital reports that they can navigate real well. And as an agent, you can kind of toggle the summary really well to kind of to make your replies to inspection. So yeah, all of these things together, I'm like really happy with my set of tools now. It's like it's like they're all these assistants that I have. So I feel like we're at a great place for being able to kind of dive into a home much more thoroughly than say 10 years ago.
I would say buyers definitely get a good reaction when you break out like the moisture meter thermal thing, right? Like if there's like a little brown
For
thing,
sure.
like, they feel like oh, they're getting their money's worth or whatever, like not their money's worth. They just feel there's a level of confidence goes up a few notches when something like that comes out.
Oh, absolutely. People love the technology. Just with the thermal gun I have, I could put my handprint on the wall and read that thermal. So I'll show people how sensitive it is to say like, hey, one, you're going to see anomalies with this. So this does not mean things are wet or hot. It's just we're going to use this as a tool, and people love it. You know, it's also like following the drone. Like I have a video camera, like we have a controller that they can see. So, you know, this is how I'm navigating the roof. So you're with me. You can see this. It's fun, you know. They love the detail of the technology. It also takes so many questions out of, like I had an inspection the other day that had a fancier water heater. So it's one of these tankless units, but this one was one I hadn't seen. You know, my grandmom always said you learn something new every day. So I keep an open mind and try not to bring too much ego. I have 20 years of experience, so I've seen most things, but I haven't seen everything. So if I have to call, a plumbing manufacturer or a heating manufacturer, I'm fine with diving into this after the inspection. But the example I'm using for this high efficiency water heater, tankless, now this was using 8 breakers, so it had 4 double sets of breakers. And it was delivering temperatures of hot water that were like 170 degrees. Now, you don't want anything above like 120, 125 degrees for safety of children and burning and things like this. So my thermal camera was able to dial in exactly the temperatures it was delivering and where it was, and those pictures go right in the report. So, you know, if the seller or the listing agent is saying like, oh, we use this every day and it's fine, it's like, you know, that like this is like very good technology to show you in a report that this has like the need for repair. So the technology is a great complement to take away that back and forth where you're like, someone's saying this is fine and we're saying it's not fine. Well, we're starting with it's not fine and we need a repair.
Yeah,
it's like very,
what's
very
hot, right? Like what's hot to you isn't hot to
But
you.
what's hot?
When you can quantify it, you're like, dude, that's hot. You know, that's too hot.
This is way too hot. You know, there's no manufacturer that's going to allow for 170 degree water, you know, at a bathtub. You know, there's just no scenario where this is safe. So in that situation, the technology is my tool. Is I've used this. You can just reference this page in the report, and there's the temperature. So the clients love it. They love the more tools, the better. And so
those damn millennials.
Yeah, that's it.
You and I are in that. We're like the exact same age, so we're in that like middle ground, whatever. We're like just too old to be the oldest millennial, and we're
that's right.
Whatever the generation before that is.
Yes.
Let's do the just like. I don't even know how to structure, right? Because you inspect a greater variety of homes than I sell, right? For the most part, like I the majority of my work is in the city. I do some suburban work, but let's go. I just want to do like I don't know the best way to do this. I have to refer to my notes, but like just like maybe the top and if you need a second to think about it, like maybe the top 3 things that seems to come up like all the time. Right.
Uh-huh.
And then let's do like if you were a buyer and you're just with their agent looking at houses, like what would be your approach? And part of those are kind of one and the same, right? If you're going to say the top 3 things, if you're a buyer, you're going to look for those top 3 things. But like if you're looking for a house, like you know me, I know that we look at the front, we look at the basement, all those things. I don't want to ruin it, but let's just start with like the 3 things that just pop out of your mind that are like, boom, this stuff is like, it just comes up all the time. It's always a problem in some form or another.
Right. The funny one is there's no basement handrail in any basement, but that's more like, I kind of laugh about being the handrail police, and if you do more like a VA loan or FHA loan, obviously you're going to deal with some of those specifics, which are GFCI outlets, which are outlets that'll protect you near water sources or outside. These are the things, like I create 2 lists in every report. One is miscellaneous electrical items, and one is miscellaneous plumbing items. So that you're going to find about 10 of those things in every house. I try not to clog up a report with these items, kind of lump them all together and give an estimate for an electrician or a plumber to kind of take care of loose toilets, faucet wear and tear. Like in bathrooms, there's always just wear and tear and slow drains and leaky valves and these sorts of things. Like you're going to anticipate the need for a tune-up electrically and plumbing, with plumbing and electric in any home. So there's like, say a few $1,000s that is, is not significant or extra dangerous repairs, but they're things that I would do. So it's always good to hand that list to an electrician and say, hey, these are the things my inspector identified with the plumbing and the electric that we want to get tight to move in this house and be comfortable and using it. So, that would be every house, ungrounded outlets, things like this.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second.
Yeah.
And that's usually from my side. I want to kind of back from my side. Like plumbing, listen, if something's like really leaking, it's getting fixed by the seller in some form or another. Electrical starts entering that world of safety, and that's the thing, a fire hazard or something, and that's something where typically as a buyer you can get recourse for from a seller because it's a safety item and it's going to come up again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure. So those are some of the most common things I find. It's every single home is going to have things with the exterior envelopes, so things that you're going to have to seal up where birds are going to get, or bees, or water. These are the every house type of things. Things that are, could be potentially more significant. If you're thinking as you're walking through a home is, you're in a basement, you're kind of thinking like, does this basement get wet? Are we vulnerable to, moisture, mold? Wood destroying insects, things like that. That sort of, and mold. I don't do mold inspections, but I identify anything that's like, I think we're supposed to be, suspected microbial growth or something like this. But you're going to find some of these things like asbestos in a lot of homes. So it's good to be able to identify potential environmental things or water in a basement. And be able to, point you in the right direction. This is a common one, maybe low grade, or this is very friable and airborne, and we need a specialist to kind of look at this and remediate it. Some of the bigger ticket items are always going to be, potentially asbestos or mold related, wood destroying insects related. We brought up knob and tube wiring, so knob and tube wiring is a very big one. And then we talk a lot about sewer pipes, right? So sewer pipes are one of the, sewer pipes are, certainly one of the hottest topics these days. It's something as a buyer that you really want to be as prepared as you can. You have options to get warranties for your sewer pipes. This is all the wastewater in the home, so bathrooms, kitchen, laundry. It's also in the city, it's roof water, surface drain water. So this is one of the bigger expenses a buyer can incur when they're purchasing a house, and a lot of times it's a surprise. So you want to inspect the sewer pipes as much as you can. Companies offer sewer scoping. I was doing it for a little bit, which I'm not doing right now, but I do refer people to a couple companies that do this at a really low price and do a great job.
Yeah, just a quick side note for buyers listening right now. Sewer pipes are, if you're talking about in the city, they're generally cast iron or terracotta portions. And the cast iron has, about 100-year life expectancy. If the house was built in the early 1900s, you're at the tail end of its life expectancy. So they start cracking, breaking, collapsing, and you got to dig up the sidewalk and all that stuff. And that's why they get expensive. So.
Yeah, it's very expensive. The city offers, through the water department, there's a company that they contract with that offers warranties for like $12, $15 a month. You have to get these. Even if it's a new home, you don't know if they did those pipes properly underground. So for $12 or $15 a month, you're getting coverage for this, and also through your homeowner's insurance, you can get coverage for this. I think I pay $65 a year for that extra coverage through my homeowner's insurance. So like, as long as that's a reasonable price, yeah. It comes up a lot. This is the thing, it'll sound like we're, kind of going on about multiple issues, but sewer pipes are really a thing you have to protect yourself from. You don't want to spend all this money purchasing a house and then also have sewer pipe issues, which, can still come up. It's you just want to make sure you're protected as best you can. So, as you're looking through a home, what I tell people, it's a common question. It's like, what should I look for? I've had some buyers reach out via email. One person in particular recently is like, how can I do like a mini home inspection as I'm looking for it? And what I tell them is, your real estate agent is going to have some knowledge about these things. You in particular, and a lot of other agents have seen a lot of these issues. So you're going to weed out some of those bigger problems just kind of as you're looking for homes. But Decide if you like the house. Don't be thinking about these technical things that we're going to sort out during a home inspection period. So do you like the location? Do you like the home? Do you like the price of the home? These should be the focus as you're looking at the house. And then, and in general, like general condition, you get a sense as you're walking through the home. Is this a home that's very close to, kind of move-in ready, and the seller is giving you some confidence with the disclosures and condition of the property? Or is this a home that's obviously in need of some work, and we're going to have to be spending some thousands of dollars, to get this to a place where we're comfortable? Or are we buying a fixer-upper, and we're kind of aware that we're going to have to be doing a lot of work? So I wouldn't get too technical as you're looking through a home. It should be like, do we love this home, and do we love the price of this home and the location and these sorts of things? And then there's a process and a window for home inspections, and that's when you will get into the nitty-gritty of the home inspection, and that has a very pre-planned schedule with responses that you'll be guided through. So, in general, like top 3 issues that I find that can be, potentially costly would always be like roof related, kind of sewer pipe related, and wiring. Those are the bigger ones. The next tier would be more like that: asbestos, termites, potential mold growth, that sort of thing. Those can be, important to address. And then you'll get down the list of things that have leaked in the home, water stains, and you get the minutia of like appliances and your water heater. Water heaters are a very knowable cost, so they can be sometimes like a bit intimidating to people. They think, oh, I need a new water heater. Well, a new water
they
heater.
are. People bug out about them. Like, that's at least.
Yeah, it's a very knowable cost. A water heater costs, a traditional 40-gallon gas-fired water heater is about $600 to purchase, and then you're going to pay the rest in labor. So it's going to cost you between $1,500 and $1,800 typically to replace a water heater. It's a very knowable cost. It's not free, but it's not $5,000, and around every 10 to 12 years you should be replacing the water heater. So every other house I inspect, I'm telling them to put a new water heater in. It's it's that common.
It's interesting, and this, I actually have a note for another video to do later on. The difference between a knowable cost and a not knowable cost, right? Like you know what it is to bring the plumber in there and swap it out. But one thing that oftentimes comes up in inspections is you'll recommend getting the HVAC serviced, right? In some form or whatever. And what I usually tell my buyers is there's different, and this is another video, but there's different recourses from your home inspection, right? You can ask the seller to fix something, and ask them to give you money to fix something, blah blah, all these different things. But like with a hot water tank, it's a knowable cost, right? If you recommend servicing the HVAC, and you may say just a servicing, assuming there's no problem, is whatever, $250, $300, whatever it is. That's something I usually advise my buyers to say, you need to go back to the seller and don't take $250 credit and handle it yourself post-inspection. Because what could happen is the HVAC company comes out, it's $250 to service it or $300 to service it, but it also needs a $500 part, and then there's labor on top of that. So you just got $250 as a credit, but now the bill's $1,000 and it's cost you an extra $750. Where if you put it on the seller to say service this HVAC and make the repairs, they now own all of that cost. So there's definitely a difference between like the known costs and the unknown costs. So I'm trying to put tidbits here for buyers for stuff like that.
Yeah, and with your example, a good home inspector, is going to be able to sort of give you a heads up if there's going to be, the potential for these, and if it's like a very likely potential, I'll put that in the report as well. So if a seller has serviced the heater and it's fairly young in the last few years, then this would be a blue low grade item where I'm saying, hey, just service the heater, $100 to $200. If we find a bunch of staining and corrosion in the heater and it has, say, 10 years on it, and it doesn't look like it's been serviced, we're going to use stronger language where we'll say, hey, have this cleaned and serviced and repaired, and then my estimate may say more like $400 to $500, anticipating some repair to something in this component. And if this is an older heater, a gas-fired furnace is designed to last 20, 30 years. If you have a boiler that's doing radiators, you get more like 30 to 50 years. So if this is, towards the end of its design life, this was with the air conditioning as well, and it doesn't look like it's been serviced at all, and there's some, and there's some corrosion, and there's some damage, and there's some clunky noises, we're going to use language like, this would be a red item, and we'd say, hey, this unit is older and it's nearing the end of its design life. There's no evidence of a recent service record. Here are the issues I saw with this unit, not limited to these items: staining, corrosion, whatever. And then I'll say, have a licensed qualified HVAC person repair, clean, service, and certify this unit prior to settlement. So that tough language is saying, get in writing that this thing is free and clear of all major defects, so that you can get a warranty for this and move forward and kind of pick up with a normal annual service after that. And you can get, and if you're in the city, PGW offers like a parts and labor plan that's cost effective. If you're in the suburbs, you can get a home warranty that covers some of these things. But if there has pre-existing conditions, some of these warranty companies are not backing this up. So there's ways that we can really grade this to the unit itself in the house and how it's functioning to make it more of a knowable cost. And certification is kind of that. I'll say certify this or replace it. Especially with an older air conditioner.
Budget for replacement, baby.
Yeah. Budget for replacement. And even like with a certification, like if you have an older air conditioning system, they have, not to get too technical, but they have older refrigerant that they don't make anymore. It's outlawed. So if you have R22 refrigerant, like this might be something that most HVAC people are going to be telling you to replace. So you want to front run this as you're buying the house. You don't want this to be a surprise when the spring comes and you turn this on, someone comes out to service it and says, hey, we don't make that, I don't have access to that R22 anymore, or it's too expensive. We want you to replace this unit for $8,000. Like, you want to know that as you're purchasing the house. Get that certified, make sure it's able to be certified and repaired, and then you can get a warranty and kind of budget for replacement, but also like service this every year until it's not practical to repair. So they can be more and more knowable, even the things that are a bit with some variables, but you can get pretty close as you're in the home inspection process, and that's the idea of having someone that's kind of can grade those to the house and to the unit itself. So
it's a lot of pressure on you, man. It's a lot of pressure to it's like someone asking me the question of is this property going to appreciate, or how much is it going to appreciate, or is it going to sell quickly? Like, you're being asked to predict the future, and there's some things that obviously they are very predictable, and some things that are middle of the road predictable. It's just like a lot of it's just welcome to home ownership. What
right.
works today may not work tomorrow, and that may be to no fault of your own. Like, you can't predict that a valve is going to start leaking tomorrow, or you're going to get a crazy storm and some water is going to make its way through down through a little crevice at the outside foundation. So it's I get it. It's a lot. Last question.
Well, I would well, real quick with that, I would say is like some inspection companies will be inspectors will be fairly quick in a home. So like I try not to be the old inspector that's there for 6 hours, but you're going to have a 3-hour very thorough experience with me, where it's very, very detailed, and I'll tell you, like, again, we kind of grade these things by scale, but my attitude is I'm inspecting this like a family member's buying the house. Every house I look at as if my family member or I'm purchasing this home. I want you to have all the knowledge possible, but there are a lot of variables with weather, age, and unknowables. There's limits that I operate by. I can't predict the future, but that's where support comes in. So I'm always available if someone has an issue after the inspection, to kind of diagnose things. I don't charge for that sort of thing. People will know that I'm very good about this. Is like, say the gas is not on at the time of the inspection. This comes up a lot, or like the water. Well, this is not the buyer's fault. I'm not going to charge you to re-inspect the home to make sure these things are functional or what's wrong prior to settlement. But even after you've purchased the home, okay, well, we had an issue, and we need someone to kind of help us figure out who to call and what the degree of the issue is. Well, I'm super happy to come back at no charge to any client and help diagnose issues and kind of point them in the right direction. So yeah, it is home ownership. This is not a perfect science. You can get very, very close, but at the end of the day, as a general home inspector, there are going to be limits to what I can do. So that's where the support comes in, following it is like, you're going to own a home, but I will be like, a friend that's able to help you, kind of figure out the proper route for repairs and what you should be paying. I can look at estimates and things like that. I'm always helpful with that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. You definitely, people have, followed up with you, and you're always very responsive.
Yes.
Last question, and we
Hit
can
me.
be quick on this. Seller's property disclosure, right? So for buyers out there, before seller lists a house, they have to disclose any known material defects they have on the property. Pretty much all the items we just talked about in some form or another. How often do you refer to that in a home inspection? Like, 'cause sometimes I get a seller's disclosure, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like a multiple offer situation. Time is of the essence. You're moving along. It's not filled out completely, and I'm just like, you know what? We got to keep this thing moving. We're gonna deal with a lot of this at the inspection. I don't know exactly what my direct question is, but like,
Well, I get it. It's like
Yeah,
a disclosure. Like, how much do I rely on a disclosure? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually joke and I'll say, disclosures are usually NA. Like, someone could live in a house for 20 years and say, I don't know anything about this house. Like, you figured out basically. And it's like, well, everyone knows you know plenty about this house. We're going to sort it out. It's a helpful tool. Some people are great with a disclosure. Some sellers will fill it out just like, very, very specific in detail, which with addendums or potentially like a pre-listing inspection report. So it's all information that kind of tells the story. We're trying to get as complete of a story as possible. So I always tell buyers not to rely on a disclosure. They can be helpful. In most cases, they're not very helpful.
Right.
I will cite in a report, I'll say, hey, ask the seller about this. This may jog their memory. There's a stain in the dining room ceiling. Like, maybe someone clogged, like maybe the kid let the tub run or somebody let a toilet overflow.
Right.
Sometimes they'll forget. And as you're filling out a disclosure, there can feel like a lot of pressure, especially if you've owned the home for a while. It's like, how detailed do I get? So, we may say, hey, let's ask the seller about this specific thing if they're able to answer. We also do, a lot of homes that are estates, and no one's going to have any connection to this property. There's not going to be any information about this property. So being mindful and respectful of the fact that this was someone's home that they took care of, but there's not going to be much information where we know the age of the roof, or we know why this area got repaired or something like that. So
Right.
you get as close as you can, but you can't really rely on a seller's disclosure. You also can't get too upset if it's very thin, because that's the norm. Don't think that's unique. It's like, usually it's I bought this home in this year and I've signed these papers, and there's not much other information in those disclosures.
It's amazing, like, how many sellers just literally do not have the attention span to actually sit down for 25 minutes and fill that document
Yes.
out. Like, you're selling your
Yes.
most important asset. I understand sometimes, like, they'll ask me, like, how do I say this? How do I disclose it without making it sound like it's terrible, right? And I get that. That's part of the game. But it's amazing how many people just don't. Literally, I think it's attention span.
Yeah, I had a seller the other day. I do a lot more pre-listings with this market, is like people that will do a pre-listing inspection.
That was my
make
next
that
question. Was walk and talks and pre-listing
And
inspections,
pre-listings.
if you want to talk about those, and because I want to plug the biz and all that. And when we wrap this up,
Oh, I
tell me about
appreciate
those real
that.
fast.
Yeah, so a pre-listing inspection, more and more people are doing this. I used to do a few a year. Now I do, a few a month. This is where someone's getting ready to sell their home. They're going to have me come out and do a pre-listing inspection. It's going to serve as their disclosure. And so buyers that are having to waive inspections these days, and even if they're bringing their own inspector in, they'll at least have a lot more information as they're making this purchase. So this particular seller was filling out their disclosure while I was there, and they were overwhelmed. They've lived there for a number of years, done a lot of work to the home, and so I said, feel no pressure. Like, my pre-listing inspection is going to be your main disclosure. So fill it out in very vague terms. Highlight the things that you've done and fixed and dealt with. Any knowledge regarding any repairs that you're going to have to make. Like, they knew they had replaced all the knob and tube wiring in the home, so provide receipts for that sort of thing. They had cleared a drain pipe, so talk about this. But in general, don't get overwhelmed with having to get too detailed. No one wants a novel here, and so so a pre-listing inspection is same idea as it's a full home inspection. It's 3 hours with a detailed report. And it gives buyers that are making offers to your home a lot more confidence on these issues, where they can really come in and make solid offers without being really worried about waiving inspections. I think it's a great tool. Obviously, this is what I do for a living, but if I was a seller, I would, for sure do a pre-listing inspection, because there's just so much value in it. You're going to get if my home inspection is $500, you're going to get that kind of return in offers and confident buyers, like, for sure. That's just the way it works. So
That's interesting. That's interesting. That's
yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I don't fully agree at times, but you might have just sold me a little bit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there was a time where we tried to put a number on this, where it was like, okay, you're going to get at least 3 times value back on offers, and I don't know how quantifiable this is, but I could say confidently you're at least going to not be losing money by doing pre-offer, especially if it's it depends on the neighborhood you are and the area you are. I would say certainly more suburbs, because that's where people are waiving inspections a lot more.
Right.
The city is kind of like more of a traditional market, where things are kind of like negotiated sort of normally. There's not a lot of waiving of inspections and that sort of thing.
Right.
So I think that is a bit more suburb specific.
That's a good point. It's good, and I think it also probably is a little bit helpful when the house is, kind of tight and in good shape, right? Like, a house that's a little bit of a disaster.
Right.
But
can go the other way, yeah.
Right.
But people are going to have their full knowledge. So and then in areas that see like Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy, and where things are going, like they are waiving inspections in some parts of town as well. But then on the flip side for the buyers, the walk and talk inspection. So this was sort of born out.
So intrigued by the walk and talk. I've still never done one, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I do a fair amount of them. Again, like this probably started around the COVID era,
right?
But the market's kind of dipped and we've had these dips and dives, and so this is born out of waiving inspections. So buyers have no knowledge; they're having to waive inspections. They're having to waive contingencies and these sorts of things, and it's very stressful for a buyer. I really feel for them. So a walk and talk is kind of born out of this. This is an hour-long inspection where there is no report. You are literally walking around with me, and I'm telling you in broad strokes the condition of the property. You can get a lot done in an hour with a home inspection. So I am, after having done a lot of these, still very confident. It is not a perfect science that should be relied on as full inspection. The assumption is that you are going to, if you move forward with this property, you are going to have a full home inspection that's documented with a report, where you can really spend the 3 or 4 hours necessary to go through a home. But it will give you the tools to move forward, to know some of the bigger potential costs. I'm able to find, some examples would be, some significant termite damage to plan for. I can fly the drone up and see the general condition of the roof. This takes 5 minutes for me. We can go through and get a general idea of the plumbing system, general system, like heating systems, air conditioning systems, age, and that sort of thing. And so I've been really happy with, well, I should say buyers have been really happy with the service. They're very happy to know that it exists. It's $250. I like to charge a flat rate for that. It doesn't matter the size of the house,
right.
Location, age, or anything. I like to be predictable with fees. So it's $250. And again, there's no home inspection report. You are expected to be taking notes, but I also do offer that like call support. So if you say, okay, we've left this home after this walk and talk, there's a lot of thoughts going on in our minds. Let's call Reid again and kind of go through his general thoughts of the property. So I'll take some notes so I can be, and I'll take some pictures as I go through to be, kind of familiar with the home. Right. And I can speak intelligently later. So yeah, people have been thrilled about it. I did 2 yesterday. Where the buyers are going to be in a very competitive situation, and they're just,
really?
Their main concern is like, let us know that there's not any major surprise cost.
Right.
And there were significant costs in both of these homes, but they can know that as they're making an offer. There's some asbestos in one property. There's going to be some electrical work in the other property. So be aware of this and don't let it be a surprise. But you can kind of just more information as you're making this offer gives people. It is so nerve-wracking to be making offers on homes with no inspections.
Yeah, I
People
was
are
going to say.
not.
So the assumption with that is that they're likely going to, if they bring an offer, they're going to bring an offer that is waiving a home inspection, right? Basically.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
just-
it's really during a showing period. You try to have an hour-long slot. I need like at least an hour, kind of. And there might be multiple people there, doing walkthroughs as well. I think there were 2 other families on the most recent one I did.
Really?
So kind of being mindful of that, and you're not taking apart electric panels, you're not taking apart heaters, you're not going into attic spaces if there's not like clear, easy access. But you are able to get a really good sense of the general condition of the property, and some specific highlights will jump out for sure. People have been really happy with it. I think as an agent, it's also good because, as you're advising someone to waive inspections, what's necessary to move forward. You're literally not going to get this house. You're not even going to be in consideration if you write the word inspection on this offer.
Right.
So, that puts real estate agents in a bad spot as well, because, this is you saying like, there's going to be issues with this home. We don't know what they are. But if you want this home, you're going to have to waive inspections. So I can be kind of that educational tool that says, okay, here's the conditions, so you're really prepared for these things as you move forward with this property.
Right.
So I think it's good for all parties, for sure. Again, the expectation that you will, and I follow up with people to do a full inspection when you're able to. Yeah.
Sure. That's good, man. It's like it helps the market, it helps the consumer, and it's it's an additional revenue stream for you, right? And you don't have to go back.
Well, for sure. I mean, this is
writing friggin' reports and doing all that stuff.
There's no reports to write. Yeah, it was certainly born out of people really as an industry, across the board, people were waiving inspections for years. So, you kind of had to find the market where it was, and so this was the way we did it.
Right. You're the man, Reid.
I think you're the man.
And can you give
very
a
much.
quick synopsis of where to find you or how to best schedule an inspection, right?
Sure. Yeah, so rshomeinspection.com. Super thrilled with the website, so you can write a message on the website. You can schedule with Sharon, my scheduler, who is wonderful, 215-550-1096. You can always text or call me direct. My cell phone is 215-605-2654 with any questions. Reach out. I will be your trusted house detective. I love the job. I very much enjoy it. And, in the biggest purchase of your life, I like to be one of the key parts of that process. So, you can for sure consider me like a very trusted resource for home inspections. And I thank you.
And you're great. You're great on your own now because not that you were pigeonholed with some of the larger companies with like a 9 a.m. slot, a noon slot, or a 3 p.m. slot. You have a lot more flexibility to work around, right? Which
absolutely, yeah. It's I was super thankful for both companies. I still have family and friends working at Value Guard. They're fantastic. Use them as well. For home inspections, they're fantastic. But on a personal level, it's sort of just taken me to the kind of next place in life where I can really efficiently manage my schedule. I can be much more flexible and available, and it's been really exciting. It's been just a very enjoyable process. A place in life where I've always sort of looked forward to, and certainly pride of ownership. But it's kind of renewed my energy for the profession, and I enjoy kind of.
Don't worry, give it a little bit of time, bro. It's all good.
It's all good, but I enjoy meeting the clients where they are. So it's been a lot more personal contact with people and just kind of guiding them through whatever they need, and that's a part. If I have to stop over and just inspect a random person's roof, I can do that. It takes me very little time, or full home inspections are, is like my bread and butter. Obviously, I do those, but kind of just. Meeting the clients where they are. That's something I enjoy a lot. I kind of fill up the day that way. Some of it is pro bono work where I'm just running back to homes, make sure repairs are done, and I don't mind doing any of that. Just trying to fit in where I can to help people out. For sure is my passion.
And I'll listen. I'll end with so my little outro, right? Real estate IQ, where we're raising your IQ to become a real estate expert. I'm Brian Capone. Like and subscribe for latest updates and new videos as they come out. Find me on social and everywhere else. But I'll leave it with this, Reid, and we're just over an hour. And I this is I'm 100% being totally genuine right now. I can't tell you how many times I've had buyers, and listen, it's buyer's choice for a home inspector. They have used a different home inspector, right? And not often, right? Because typically people use my recommendation. But the times when they have used somebody else, and I'm there with the home inspector, and I'm thinking to myself, God damn, I wish Reid was doing this inspection. He's so much better than this individual.
No, I thank you very much for that.
I truly mean that, and I think that's like, it's obviously a compliment. It's obviously a compliment and all that stuff, but I wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't true. Like, I'm in the back of my mind, and listen, I mean, what am I going to say? I'm not going to be like, pump the brakes, cancel this. We got to get Reid in here, right? Like, we are where we are, and we got to do it. And I'm not going to be like, you could have got a better home inspection from my guy. You know what I mean? But like, the thought I've had in the back of my mind is, God damn, I wish Reid was doing this because he's so much better.
Oh, man. I appreciate you.
It might not even be identifying things. It may just be just general explanation. You know what I mean? And rapport with the client, So to me, like, that's the ultimate compliment for you. And listen, this business, there's what's it called? There's resources, right? There's lenders, there's home inspectors, there's title insurance, there's all these people, and you fit the home inspection role absolutely perfectly, and I'm appreciative of all your help over the years. So, and for doing
Thank you very much.
You're kind of number one at this point in terms of this little setup. So,
well, listen, Brian, I really appreciate it. I consider you a close friend and fantastic. But on a professional level, it's always a pleasure to work with you. I know that you have your client's best interest at heart, and that's who I want to be working with. So, like, I've been fortunate to be in this business for a couple decades, both of us. And I think we both know that we're there for the client, and we deliver really good service to people. So there's a confidence that comes with that over the years. So I really very much appreciate it, and it's a mutual feeling for sure. As I know that we are going to be handling anything that comes up very professionally, and the people that we're working for are going to be thrilled that they hired us. And we'll continue to be their people for life. That's the idea, right?
That's the goal. That's absolutely the goal.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate you.
I'll see you on the next one, probably pretty soon.
See you on the next one, man. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.